That's how it's going to be. Really, the darkness. I've realised that basically the smoke is from the multi-fuel stove. It needs a little bit of a patch up that I haven't had the time to give. And every time I turn it on and I either put kindling, which is wood, it's a bit more smoke than just the coal gives off. But I'm generally living in a whatever the Native American Indians use when they you know, do smoke therapy. I don't know if that's an actual thing, but I imagine it is. You know, lock someone in a small teepee and light a fire and let the smoke cleanse them. Chuck some white sage on it. Well, I don't have white sage, but I just have sweet smelling logs. And that's why it's a bit smoky. As for the darkness, it's I've had to cover the skylight because it's not properly sealed in, so I still need to bring some of my last remaining possessions on board, and that's how they're going to come in through the skylight. So the skylight's not fixed in. And as a result, when it rains, it leaks. So I've just covered it with a big sheet of insulation for the time being, so the rain can just pass over it. And that's blocked out the light here. But I've also, as I've been pottering about the boat over the past week, I've not been able to do much else. I found like a light I've been looking for a while that I want to install. So we'll see how the shock continues, but if I have 50% health, I'll be able to make a nice little home for myself here. But that's if I'm allowed to have 50% health. Yeah, no, the things have been very difficult. I'm still riding out the shock. And whenever I'm in that place, it's like a near-death experience, so to speak. It's like I'm riding, how would you call it? Riding like a fever. But it's been happening for years now, and the first time I remember it was when I was admitted to hospital. And it happens every time I go to hospital. My digestion packs up. I can't digest my dinner. I go there and I'm lying there at night and I'm tossing and turning. I can't sleep. I feel sick. I can't breathe. And it happens every time I go to hospital. And essentially what I'm experiencing now is just the hospital, the side effects of medication drawn out over a longer period. Like, in other words, given my life and my age and the timing and everything, the last two have just knocked me out, and I'm in a constant state of riding out like what I can't remember what I just said. But this one is, I tuned in yesterday that it's got traces back to the course of medication I took 2 years ago. with what I'm experiencing. So in other words, the side effects that I began to experience in my life 2 years ago, I'm sort of having to deal with the climactic remnants of that now. I hope it can pass altogether rather than being an ongoing thing any longer. But yeah, no, when I'm in that place of fever, placed in this place of riding out like a near constant state of fever by a reptilian. I labelled him as a reptilian. I spoke to him openly and honestly how I viewed him as a reptilian. He was a therapist. And ever since our interaction there, a few energetic, how can we put it, laying of hands on me on an energetic level, I've been fighting out a near constant state of death. That's the only way I can describe it. That's how it feels. But in that place, there seems to be all the wonders of the universe to be tasted. In other words, if you're someone who gets off on your mind, go and speak to a reptilian. You know, they'll put you in the right place. You'll be you'll have such a ball with the downloads you'll be getting. But it's not my cup of tea, really. I mean, it's nice to taste, you know, having this, but not at the risk when it's at the way, let alone to the extreme that I'm experiencing it. And sure, it's like I've come out and my eyes feel like they're beaming, like I can zeros. No thanks, I didn't want to wake up in the first place. Cypher had it right with the steak, man. Well, what do I want to be in Zion for? I just get attacked all the threats, so I just stay cozy in my my human battery encapsulated goo and live out an eternal fantasy of something a little bit better and a little bit less of a fighting narrative than the Matrix gives. But let's just say the road to Zion, which I don't know, I'm not gonna disclose anything. The whole point was to not talk about that stuff, talk about something mainstream, talk about something boring, and just talk about it because it will be a distraction from the downloads. And with the downloads, it's like I know not to venture into them. I know the harm they can give. I know they're intoxicating because they're beautiful. Fighting for your life, it's not really something you want to give too much energy to. And unfortunately, last night the physical symptoms were so bad, I had to surrender and say, well, look, I'm gonna have to feast on the information that is available to me right now, and where I've allowed it and where it's also left me very weary. Well, it's not left me weary. My physical health has left me weary, but any thought of more is a bit off-putting. The only way and I don't know if I joke or if I'm serious with this statement, but I think it would possibly be right now. In other words, what you want to know about the universe, I'll charge you £4.99 flat fee. Make no guarantees about it being correct because it's of psychic information, but up 2-3 years now, and I can't believe how tied up I've managed to make the universe. I don't know how to feel about it, in other words. I don't know if it's good or bad, real or not. That ties in pretty much every aspect of creation, there and thereabouts. So let's talk about something mainstream, not the corona fucking virus. I want to talk about football, if I'm honest, but my mental health hasn't been allowing me to really follow it in any way. I used to just listen to an illegal live stream on the internet I found. So subscription based, you get all the access to all the channels for next to nothing every month, and provide the semi-reliable service. But that's ceased, and I've accepted I'm going to have to go back to an internet radio level of sport following, and I can't even manage to get that into gear at the moment, so a bit disheartening, especially I'm missing the Formula One. The Formula One I really liked watching. The football, I just listen to it as a once upon a time fan of Arsenal Football Club, and just appreciate the not even the managerial aspect of the football game, the business aspect of the game. That's what I really follow, and that really relates into player purchases, that relates into the final display, the final performance. But that's the level that I follow it at, and for that reason I'm not a proper fan, but I still get something from it. I'm mixing up some white sage and tobacco. I realised just now it's really strange with tobacco. With tobacco, because they've got all those labels on the packets, it's like good for me. And yeah, all right, if you're buying the standard standard tobacco, Marlboro, and all of the other brands I can't even think of at the moment, it is. There's additives in the chemicals that are definitely not good for your health. But where you get about 2,000 odd chemicals in your standard cigarette, I think that goes down to about 70 natural chemicals with the additive free brand. So it's a big disparity in terms of health, and you can understand why the cigarettes are unhealthy for 2,000 chemicals in them. it's a different class to consider something with what's the percentage point? It's about 0.35, 0.035, one or the other percent in terms of chemical constitution, and 35 whatever. It's also mostly, I imagine, I'm sure there's a few pesticides, or it's not organic, so I'm sure there's a few pesticides, but I don't eat and follow an organic diet, so I'm going to get that from food anyway. But most of them should be natural out of that 70, as opposed to 1,900 odd man-made creations that find themselves on tobacco for some strange reason. And I realised this, like, with tobacco, because it's got all of the health labels on it, and it's like packaged as a product in itself when it's rolled, and it's white and it's orange, and it's had its past, and it's been mainstream, and you don't consider it a health herb. Tobacco is very much a health herb, from my understanding. The way it's been packaged and the way health is available to health information and health consciousness is available to people, I can't foresee hardly anybody putting two and two together to say, right, well, if I buy some tobacco and mix it with my other medicinal herbs, I'm good for me, because that ultimately tobacco is a lung herb, and if you're smoking, you're interacting with the lungs, and then if you activate the lungs and instigate other healing herbs into the body at the same time, you're going to amplify the effects. And that's just my perception on it. And it's like, because of the way it's packaged, tobacco smoke contains over 70 substances known to cause cancer. Sorry, that's where I got 70 from. It's like that's it. So the standard tobacco, that's as bad as it gets. But the normal stuff you get in the shops, from the information I've received in my life, a policeman at school that came round to poo-poo tobacco and marijuana use, disclosed to us, you know, at that young age, that tobacco has over 2,000 chemicals in it. He failed to mention that you can buy the additive-free stuff. Sure, he had his reasons. Probably a £30,000 paycheck and a script of what to tell us. Asked him the question at the time, you know. All right, that's fine. Tobacco has 2,000 chemicals, because I've always had beef with it, you know. I couldn't see my dad smoking something that said that this will kill you on it. I didn't get it as a kid. So tobacco was always evil in my head. And I raised my hand to the policeman, and I said it on live stream before, I think. All right, that's fine, but what happens if you just smoke marijuana by itself? And the policeman said, yeah, but you've got to smoke tobacco with marijuana. And if you smoke tobacco with marijuana, that's 2,000 odd chemicals plus one. And as a 16-year-old idiot, I was like, oh, right, okay, yeah, makes sense. After thinking about it for 3 or 4 years, I tried smoking marijuana just by itself. But that's the speed my brain works at. And also the availability of it with my friends. They were big smokers. I got into it for a few weeks, few months, for a short period, but didn't really do anything for me. wasn't really suited to my nature. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking about going into in the future, if life allows me to start walking like a human being again, and I can get from one side of my boat to the other. And that is in the final creation of a floating therapy centre here on and applying a certain level of what would only be described as a shamanic approach to healing. Well, shamanic, and also an Edgar Casey type of healing mentality. You know, I don't know if anybody's looked into his work, but it was really just, I'm aware of. It was like, I'm not going to ask you to change your life. I know what's in the shops because I'm switched on and plugged in, and I know what's in all of that shit on a different level that you can buy in a shop. I know what all of the ingredients on another level. Marmite, if I need to, smother it on your leg, because I know there's an active ingredient, a Marmite, that will heal you. Yeah, sure, it's a bit weird. Yeah, sure, that you've got probably a few hundred other ingredients in there as well that aren't going to do anything. But I know there's one active ingredient in Marmite that will heal your leg. Well, I'm not going to go and ask you to go and look on the interwebs back in the 19 whatevers when he was about to find some sort of synthesized chemical or synthesized natural ingredient in its purest form, when I can just tell you to go to the shops and spend 20p, however much it is. And that's essentially the logic of Edgar Casey. He was a very practical man, from my understanding, but he was totally plugged into something. Has been going that way since I'm mad. It's allowed me to say, well, look, Andreas, you're mad. You're plugged into something else. You have been since you're a teenager. Nobody gives you credit in terms of being a person with a personality or anything like that, because you don't display it, even though you can do it better than most people and you know it. And you know, what do you want to do? Do you want to explore, or do you want to sit there and fight for your personality? Or when you can't get dressed in the mornings, and the best attempt to get dressed, you always look like a homeless person. So I had to give myself some ease, allowed my mind to venture into healing and health from an alternative perspective. I'd like to make a floating therapy centre and offer, I don't know if I could call it Taoist. I mean, I've got, my uncle has given me Taoist origins, and I appreciate the Taoist energy. But I haven't done the research to call myself a Taoist. But I can call myself disabled shamanic in training. So we'll call it Andreas's Disabled Shamanic Herbs. And where most people can't get themselves in a place to boil, I don't know if any of you have been fortunate, because it's fortune, to go to a Chinese doctor, that I believe the modality of healing is far better than what we have here in the National Health Service in treating the vast majority of conditions, and health to remain in the individual rather than just giving them problems on top. Might not be appropriate for some times, but on the whole their systems are pretty solid. But if you've ever been fortunate enough to be given a course of Chinese, the fortunate part is they taste absolutely awful. I've been in training since I was a teenager with my family. It was a semi-regular visit to a Chinese doctor for health, and that's one thing I appreciate from my family, that they've allowed me, that they've given me in my life. That, and that might have been suggestions from my uncle, because he was a bit wacky back in the 70s and 80s. He was traveling he was trekking in the mountains, finding he traveled to Africa. He's on a spiritual level, and he trained in Tao. Maybe it was his suggestion. I will never know. But my taste buds began to accept the absolute awful taste of the teas, and also the healing properties of them at a young age. Chinese teas and their healing properties. So, but like myself, when I find myself alone in this place, and I can't function, and I'm just trying to clean myself every day, dress myself, clothe myself, and make it to the other side of the boat, to the kitchen every so often. The thought of putting a tea on to brew is a bit beyond me, but rolling a smoke and it's far easier. I highly recommend, if you can, to do it via route. It hits more of the emotional body. And with the emotional body, I think that's where we were working on, at least here in the UK. We've got a drinking culture. We're fighting dampness in terms of what the Chinese say, because of the climate. It's damp, it's wet, it's rainy, it's cold, and you feel that in your body. And the effect upon the body is dampness. That's how they reference it in Chinese medicine. So with the emotions, because it's water based, and the tea there is warming, and if you get the right ingredients in the tea, you'll really feel benefits there. But in climates where, I mean, I'm sure smoking can help, but I haven't thought about it, how smoking can help dampness, because it makes sense. Smoking's drying. So it's probably absolutely suited to here in the UK too, but in a specific way. I need to think about it more. So that's a dream. Right now I fear for my home in the first place, you know. If I can't get myself up and active and moving on, and if I can't even sit, how am I going to think about turning out? So I'm just going to end it here because I can't really think of other non-activating topics to talk about.